All right, good morning everybody. So today I'm going to show you how to add on the corset area of your dress and then start adding on the rest of the colors of your dress. Now your dress could be decorative like mine, where it's got like the kaleidoscope canes rolled into a slab, or this could be the same color as the regular part of the dress, or it could be just a plain color. Any of those would work out perfectly amazing. So, be creative with it and see how you do. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is how, if you do have another color or a decorative area, how to kind of add more on to this area here, because that's what I always start with. Because at first it's going to look kind of patchy where I'm just doing small bits with my detailing. And since this is just clay, it's not actual fabric, I can kind of smooth it and make it look like, there wasn't a separation there or anything. So for this first part, I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you with this little small slab. I like to work kind of smaller scale for this and do little bits at a time, just because for me it is easier. And it's always nice too if you start off with a clean edge, either one that's rounded from when you rolled it out, or that is cut with no raggedy edges. So that just makes it easier for me. So really what I'm going to do is I will flip this over. Oh, I made a big old bend. Good thing it's just clay. Okay, so I'm going to kind of overlap my previous one, and I'm going to set this right up against my other color. So right here, and then I'm going to gently kind of push towards it. Now I'm using just the very tip of my finger, and I'm just barely pushing. I'm not touching this part at all. I'm really just focusing on this side. And by doing that, I'm getting that clay right up against the edge of the other color without having it mixed together. And then once I have that really close to the edge, I can real gently kind of blend just a little teeny bit, and it'll fill in any little gaps. And then the rest is just kind of smoothing. So you're just going to kind of smooth right there, try to make it look as even as possible as if it was one piece. So if you have a bigger area, just kind of, squish it down a little bit, blend off the fingerprints. If you have a little bit of extra on this end, you can just trim it off, and remember to keep all your scraps because you can use those later for other sections. And if you're changing colors, make sure you have a little piece of paper towel so you can change the colors and wipe your hands in between each color. Okay, so that's how you do the little edge. You just kind of mess with it a little bit until it's really nice and blended and smooth. Now for this top part here, I'm gonna add on the back of the dress, and my dress you can see is mostly open back, but then I'm going to cover that little bit up there. But I'm going to use basically that same technique. I'm just going to take a little slab that I make sure my edge is nice. If I have any little funky spots from cutting, I can just pat those down. Because once it's on the dress, I can still do a fair amount of smoothing and stuff. But if you start with something nice, it's a little bit easier to keep it nice. And I know I'm not going to need all of this, but I want to make sure I have enough. So I'm just going to lay it across and kind of see where I need it. And I'm going to mark it. I'm going to trim like right here and right here. And I'm just cutting off my extra beforehand just to make it a little bit easier to apply, but I can keep all these little bits and stuff. Okay, so I'll move those to the side. Whee! And then, pick your best side. So if one side looks better than the other side, like for me, that side looks better. So pick your best side and use that one on the outside, so that way it shows. And like I said, you're just gonna lay it over the top. You're gonna lay it next to, but not on top of, your other color. And you just kind of gently push it down and blend it in with the other parts of the dress, right? So you're just kind of blending it in. So if you have any of these lines, remember you can just bend your arms out of the way. Just be careful not to crack any of this stuff up here. And if you do, then, you can always take it off and add that part again. But if you don't break it every time, then that's easier. Okay, so keep blending. Now for like right here, I don't want that to cover up this area. So I'm gonna trim a little bit of that out just to make it a little bit easier to keep it separate. I'm gonna flatten it a little bit and just keep on blending. So now I haven't finished blending this part yet, but you can see how I can just kind of flatten this. And at first it starts off with like a billion fingerprints and everything. And that's okay. So just get it to as even a thickness as you can, because once you get the thickness even, then you can really lightly just kind of like brush it with your finger and start getting all those little fingerprints off. But it's gonna take a lot longer if it's in an uneven thickness or has like bumps and stuff already in it. So you're just gonna kind of keep pushing it down, moving the clay to where, you know, taking away from areas that are taller and moving it to areas that are thinner. So you would keep going. And then if you have little spots like this, you can use your little extras to fill in. And like I said, since this is clay and not fabric, you don't have to actually sew it. You can just blend it however you want. Now for big, large areas like this, if you have a larger slab, you can lay that slab where you think you're gonna need it and start pushing it up against the clay from the middle. So you kind of push it from the middle, make it start following the shape of your figure that you already have. So make sure that it's falling real close. And like I said, if you have little gaps, you can just use that extra clay from earlier. The main thing is you just don't want to have lots of air bubbles. Now, once you get close to where your clay was from before, you can just trim some of this off. So, you know, holding it in the most comfortable angle. I like to push gently against my finger when I do this, and I'm just gonna trim off some of that extra like that. I'm gonna try to make it kind of go with the shape that I'm going for down here. And I can always take off more or smooth it as I go, stuff like that. So I just roughly trimmed it. It's not super even yet, but that's okay because I'm just adding on the bulk of it, and then I'm gonna kind of blend and refine it. So I'm just pushing stuff on here. And then the same thing on the other side. So you're just gonna trim it as you go. Now, depending on how thick your piece is, because I'm using a really, really thin piece, because I really don't need, I already have a thickness of clay on there. I really don't need the color that is my favorite color. I don't really need it to be super thick or anything. I just need it to fully cover all that red extra, you know, messy clay that I had left over from other projects. I just wanted to make sure that I covered all of this stuff, right? So now I've cut this side, I'm just pushing it in and blending it. So that part, the blending part, does take a little while to make sure that you're getting everything nice and smooth and blended. Don't be afraid to cut off a little extra or add a little more as you need it. But once you have those, you know, edges really nice, that's the part that takes me the longest, and really it doesn't take that long. But then it's just blending and smoothing and making sure that everything looks really nice. And like I said, I've got just a little teeny bit of patching to do in the front, like right here. I can just add a little ball and smooth it in. So I'm not gonna make you watch me smooth the whole thing, but once you have that covered, then the rest of it is just, you know, like I said, refining all those shapes, blending all the clay, making sure that the clay is the shape that you want it and the size that you want it and, you know, the thickness that you want it, and that you're getting rid of any extra clay. So, and just keep all that extra just in case. Okay. Now, so that's the bottom. So like I said, I still have more smoothing to do, but that's the basic for getting that covered. Now, if you're doing the dress all one color, then just, you know, same technique. You just don't even have to worry about the edges. The only edges you have to worry about is up at the top if you have a different